Haha, I steal your deck.
You can have this jeweled bird.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Playing with Power podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things CEDH, EDH, and Magic the Gathering. I am your host, Ryan.
And I am your host, Callahan. And today we are going to be talking about the concept of ante in CEDH. Have you ever heard of ante? What is ante? How would it change everything we do in the format, if it changed anything at all? And would it be miserable? Spoilers, the answer is probably yes.
How do you know? They're not even going to listen now.
Oh no, we ruined the episode. Ante is miserable. That's why you've never heard of it. Or if you have heard of it, you've never played with it.
Thanks a lot for joining us, everyone. That's our podcast episode.
All right. Well, at the exact moment this goes live, we do not have any tickets on sale for our latest Mox Masters, but when you're listening, we very well might. Mox Masters, you can compete for $2,000 in prizes and points towards our Mox Masters Invitational coming in October 2023. If we currently have tickets on sale for an event, there's a chance it might be sold out, but go and check it out at moxmasters.events. Speaking of things that are sold out, we often have merchandise available in our store, but right now we just have a Playing with Power coin. We've got the Playing with Power dice, and if you are interested, we are currently running a pre-order for our Playing with Pride sticker. Go to playingwithpowermtg.com and help support the channel, or in this case, if you're pre-ordering that sticker, help support our safe place in San Diego. You can also support the channel on Patreon. Patrons get access to our Discord, Webcam League play days, early access to videos, names in the credits of our show, exclusive videos, and even the ability to be on an episode, especially now, legacy episodes, and more. There are tiers for everyone, so go to patreon.com/playingwithpowermtg and help support us. Also, another way you can support us if you are looking to sponsor the podcast or even our normal show, reach out to Ryan in his email in the podcast notes or the YouTube description, or you could like DM him on Twitter, or you could show up at his house.
Twitter's also a nice place. I don't always answer my DMs, but sometimes I do.
Don't show up at his house.
You can send me a letter. You know, you can
send him a letter. Send him a letter through the old snail mail
Dear Ryan, to whom it may concern. So, hope this letter finds you well.
It's kind of just like Santa. If you put Ryan from Playing with Power on a letter, the USPS will know exactly where to send it, but you have to put $10 of postage on it for the trouble.
That's right. Straight into the garbage. That's where they'll put it. That's where they'll put the letter.
Into the garbage.
Straight into the garbage. Anyway. Where it belongs. Don't reach out to me on snail mail.
Don't talk to me.
All right. And one other thing that we do in every episode is give a Patreon shout out. And today's Patreon shout out goes to Night Rocker.
Oh, thank you, Night Rocker. One of our very first patrons, if I'm not mistaken.
One of our very early patrons. Super appreciate you, Night Rocker. I wish you'd come back to the Discord so we can talk smack all day long, because I love doing that in the past.
All right, on to our main topic, which is ante in CEDH. But of course, Ryan, I think the very first thing we have to define here is, what is ante? If you are newer to the game, or maybe if you're not newer to the game, you probably have never heard of ante. And honestly, I do not blame you. So ante was a optional rule that was available. It was kind of almost like a game format. You could play the game, or you could play the game with ante. It was available to you to play. And if all the players agreed to play for ante at the beginning of the game, before drawing starting hands, each player would put a random card from their library into the ante zone, and the winner of the game receives permanent ownership of all cards in that zone. So, it was kind of like playing for keeps, so to speak.
Literally.
Literally playing for keeps. It was the one way in Magic's history that ownership of a card could change hands. Correct. It is kind of interesting that we have there's a lot of cards that care about ownership versus controlling and all that kind of stuff, which is a real easy way of saying, oh yeah, this card goes back to the person who literally, legally, physically owns this piece of cardboard for the purpose of this game, versus the person who temporarily controls it. And Ante said, what if that could change?
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't very popular, needless to say, because Richard Garfield, designed this optional way to play the game into the game because we talked about this on a little bit of our cards that impacted CEDH episode for Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, and Revised. When the game was very first conceived, it was the first trading card game. There wasn't a lot that we knew about trading card games at the time. Richard Garfield thought that the average player would buy a starter deck and buy a couple packs, kind of almost like spend $30 on it like you would a board game, and then you would have a board game experience of these are my cards and I'm going to play with my cards. So Ante was kind of conceived as a way that people could consistently play against each other with the same smaller pool of cards, but there would be churn in the collection because as people won, against each other, their cards would kind of swap all around, and it was kind of almost be a form of trading, but more randomized and based on who won the games and stuff. What Garfield didn't anticipate was that the game was actually going to be wildly popular and people would want so many cards that they would just buy tons and tons of cards so they could make the best decks. And then once they had all these awesome cards they were attached to, they wouldn't want to lose them to people in what is at some level past skill, a game that is very heavily chance based. Magic has a lot of skill to it, but it is also it is a very random game. There's the mana system. There's the fact that we're drawing blind from the deck, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Especially early in the game, this was a lot more prominent too. So a lot of people didn't want to play for Ante because they didn't want to lose their precious basic lands that they couldn't find anywhere.
I played a couple of Ante games. I played way back when. I started in Saga Masks is when I would say I would officially start it. But I also played a little bit in the Tempest block. Now, I don't actually ever call myself a player who first played in Tempest. I never actually got into the game then, but I got in during Saga Masks. But I definitely had some friends who played during the Tempest block. And we would play for Ante at the time. And the tough part about Ante is what you do is you shuffle your library and you both, present the deck to be cut to the opposite player. Remember, this is all 1v1 back then. And then you cut the deck and then you ante the top card of your library. Whoop. And then be like, that is the ante. You didn't get to choose what it was. You didn't get to do anything. You ante the top card of the library. So when you talk about random, you're talking about random from the very beginning. So I might ante a forest in my elves deck and you might ante a Black Lotus. So now you're really hoping.
Doesn't exactly work out for you.
Exactly. You're really hoping that your game wins.
Hope I can pull this one off. Yeah, exactly.
And so that was I think part of the thing that made Ante fail so hard was that because it's random Ante. It's not it's not like I'm going to look at my deck. What do you pick it? I'm picking this and I'm picking that. Okay, that's great. And
all right, we're playing for basic forests.
Yeah, we're playing for basic lands. So there's no stakes, is what you're telling me. Okay,
yeah, exactly.
But it was random Ante, which is what made it such a feels bad because sometimes you play for a basic land in a Black Lotus, and that just sucked. Or you'd play for in more realistic situations, you would play for a basic land and a Lion's Eye Diamond back in Mirage and Tempest and stuff like that, and you're like, that kind of sucks. I like that card. It's. Did I do XYZ with it? And now that feels real bad because Lion's Eye Diamonds are really expensive, but
exactly.
So, but the thing was that also, so not only did it create that situation with it, it also, I believe, was found to be a form of gambling. And so they put the kibosh on it immediately, they were like, whoops, that's not what we want. No, this game isn't a gambling game. We swear. And so they were like, no, we don't ante. Because you're gambling that you'll win is what you're doing.
Yeah, it's definitely like when you get into the tournament scene, that's something they have historically. The Magic has constantly been trying to beat the gambling allegations
and the loot box allegations.
Yeah,
and gambling.
Exactly.
Yep. Mm-hmm. They've been trying to steer around it.
These cards are not worth anything because if they were, by opening a pack, you're gambling that you're going to get a $30 card rather than a $1 card.
That's why they always constantly say and meme online that the secondary market doesn't exist because the moment they acknowledge it, that means that they know what they're printing.
And run into some problems in the European Union.
Exactly.
is what happens then.
So that's why they can't acknowledge it for those of you who are always asking out there.
Yep.
And that's why. But back to Ante. So obviously this was not a well-regarded mechanic, and people didn't like it and they didn't want to play it. But the thing was, is that Richard Garfield also built some cards around Ante. So Ante was not just a mechanic that we just did and just decided to do away with. There was actually some cards built around the Ante mechanic in the game. And that's part of what we're going to be talking about today. We're not going to be talking about, what if we just Ante the top part of our library? No, we're going to talk about which we're not going to do, by the way, because I would totally
my volcanic island, bonk.
No, my freaking Thassa's Oracle. Now I can't win. It's my only win con. It's like, whoops. I guess I'm out.
It's like getting hit with a Ragavan, but infinitely worse.
No, you don't ever get it. Oh, it's my signed one too. Oh, that's unfortunate.
No, my signed artist-proof Thassa's Oracle with the sketch on the back. Oh, it's not a legal card. I can't handle this. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, guys. Let's
shuffle my library.
Let me have just one more do-over on my Ante. I want to flip my only basic land, and I run my deck.
Coming on down to the proxy-friendly CEDH Ante tournament with my 100% proxy deck. Oh, hey, buddy, with the blinged out $25,000 Najeela deck. Let's go.
Yeah, that would also be another thing about Ante. The dichotomy of proxies versus the fact that there's no in between in CEDH. Like, you either have proxy, like it's worth maybe $20 total, or it's like printer paper behind basic lands, or it's like a $25,000 deck. There is no in between ever.
Exactly.
All right, so let's talk about the mechanics. So we talked about the mechanics of Ante. Now let's talk about the cards that were actually printed. There were only 9 cards printed that had to do with Ante. So those 9 cards are Amulet of Quaz, or however you want to pronounce that, Bronze Tablet, Contract from Below, Dark Pact, Demonic Attorney, Jeweled Bird, Rebirth, Tempest of Freet, and Temerian Fiends, I guess. Temerian Fiends or something. I don't know. I can't.
Part of the reserved list.
I can't reason. I think they're all part of the reserved list.
They're all part of the reserved list.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're all part of the reserved
list. Jeweled Bird is not on the reserved list.
Bronze Tablet isn't either. So get your copies while you can, everybody.
Oh, neither is Dark Pact. Oh, wait, nice. It is. I'm lying.
All right. So basically, these all have mechanics that interact with the Ante zone, if you will.
They must be removed from your library if you are not playing for Ante.
Yes. So each one of these, in the very, very beginning, the first thing it says on each one of these is it says, remove so-and-so from your deck before playing if you're not playing for Ante. So another thing about these cards is that they are not legal in any format. Ante's not a thing. They are not legal in any format that could even remotely be legal in. This is including Vintage, which restricts everything.
It's like one of very few cards. These are all very few cards that are actually just straight up banned in Vintage, along with the racist cards, and the
dexterity
the conspiracy stuff and the dexterity cards.
Yep. So conspiracy cards, dexterity cards, things like Chaos Orb or whatever.
Chaos Orb,
yeah, the things that actually require you to move because it's an accessibility thing for people with disabilities. Anti cards and
anti cards,
and racist cards. Yeah.
So
these are the only ones that are actually banned. So this is it's actually on a very short list of actually banned cards in Vintage, because you don't ban cards in Vintage, you restrict them.
You restrict them, yeah.
So you can play with one copy of things. This allowed people to play with their Black Lotuses. This is why that exists.
Yep, exactly.
Funny story. That's, freaking Lurist was banned from Vintage. It was so broken.
Yeah, because even having one Lurist in your companion zone for a while was too strong. But they unrestricted it eventually after the companion nerf. And
because they literally had to change how the mechanic worked. That's how bad it got.
Exactly.
Anyway, we're going off topic again. But anyway, that's all right.
Speaking of things that, if I wish they changed how the mechanic worked, how would Ante cards? What Ante cards of these 9 might we play in CEDH? And of the 9 cards, we kind of figured that maybe people would play 3 of them, starting with. Obviously, it's a card that nobody really ever talks about because it's not a card you can legally play anywhere. But this might be, in my opinion, and I think in your opinion too, this might be like the single most powerful Magic the Gathering card of all time.
All time. Without a doubt.
Which is Contract from Below. It costs you a single black. It is a sorcery, and it reads, discard your hand, ante the top card of your library, then draw 7 cards. Any drawing 7 cards for a single black mana enjoyers in chat?
Ryan,
are you into drawing 7 cards for a single black mana?
Give me a more powerful card. Give me any. It beats Mana Crypt by a Texas mile. It beats everything. This is not Winds of Change where you shuffle it in. You actually bend them. You actually put them in the graveyard, so you get to fuel things. And all it costs you is another card in your ante. That's all it costs you. So you can do all kinds. This is the single most powerful card ever printed in Magic. Go ahead. Give me a more powerful one. Give me one.
I just wanted to say high praise.
High praise, yeah.
Like Lotus? I don't know.
No, that's more powerful.
I don't know. Time Walk, maybe.
Nope.
I don't know.
Nope.
Time Walk.
I don't agree. Give me anything that gives you that much advantage, because Time Walk for 2 gives you a card and the steps and phases of the game.
Yeah, nice explore, buddy.
Yeah, nice explore. Yeah, you get to play an extra land. But honestly, right? Untap, draw a card, get another combat step. But honestly, I mean,
it's a very strong card.
We can get into semantics and stuff, but I've always found this to be easily top 3.
Yeah, it's a very strong Magic the Gathering card, and it does have the downside, which is anting another card from your deck. Which, like, if we're sitting here, we're playing CEDH, that could be a pretty big deal, you know. Having to exile another card from your library for ante, it's just like you're kind of playing a game, right? You're kind of getting a little risky with it. If we're playing for keeps here, if we're playing for ante, if you're doubling the size of your ante pool, who knows what you'll put in there? Which is like, on a meta level, a pretty big downside, actually. But I don't know, if you're casting Contract from Below, you're probably just going to be hopefully winning the game because the card is so strong.
Yep.
But what this also really drive home for me was Wizards of the Coast, and by that I mean Richard Garfield and the Bridge Club guys and the East Coast playtesters and all that crew. They really had a thing for wheels.
Yeah, they
you know,
did.
in the set, because you know Contract from Below is from, you know, Alpha, Beta, Unlimited Reserves, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think it's in revised. I don't think it made it into revised.
It is in revised.
Oh, it is in revised. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was also Summer Magic Edgar, but
$3
it was
in revised.
Amen. It was in ABUR. Yeah.
Yes. Really had a thing for wheels. There's Time Twister, which is not explicitly a wheel. There's obviously Wheel of Fortune.
It's a wheel. Dude, Time Twister's a wheel. It's pay mana to get cards. It's pay mana to get cards, if we're being semantic.
We don't call these effect twisters, okay?
You call them wheels. You're right. You're 100% correct.
There's Twister, there's Wheel of Fortune, and then there's also, for some reason, the one-sided wheel, Contract from Below, all in the same set. The more you look around these sets, the more you realize there's actually just like a bunch of the exact same effects over and over again, which is very funny to me. But any closing thoughts on your strongest card of all time, Contract from Below? How would this change CEDH, Ryan?
Every black deck would
even better. No,
every black deck would run it. Every single one. There's no doubt. Like, there's never an instance when you don't want you only. By the way, a fresh 7. This is not everyone gets a fresh 7 like a Wheel of Fortune. It's you only. So you get a fresh 7.
It removes the downside that a lot of people have trouble with in Wheels and CDH, which is that, like, you're drawing 7 cards, but your opponents are also drawing a million cards, which is just...
So your argument for Wheels, like people's argument against Wheels,
is not, just goes away.
Is not there.
All of the upside with none of the downside.
So this fuels Breach.
Yep.
So you, for 1 black, there's almost nothing that does that, by the way, that fuels Breach for 1 black.
Hey, 1 with nothing is right there, Ryan.
Oh, I'm sorry. But like there's so, for example, in some Mardu decks, there is a Breach line that involves Stitcher Supplier and Culling the Weak, because you can mill 6 and escape both. This one is better than that.
Yeah.
I'll escape Contract from Below, discard my hand, escape Contract from Below, discard my hand, escape Contract from Below, and then I'll just escape a Dark Ritual again or something.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? Yeah.
It's actually better rate.
It just works.
Yeah, so it's amazing.
You ante a bunch of stuff, which is a little tough. But
sure, you'll ante. Yeah. But that's where it gets into our second card, which is that we will see in CDH, which is Jeweled Bird. Okay, so Jeweled Bird reads like this. It is 1 for an artifact. You can tap Ante-Jeweled Bird. So you take it from the battlefield, put it in your ante pile. If you do, put all other cards you own from the ante into your graveyard, then draw a card. Graveyard, then draw a card.
Ooh,
not your hand or anything like that, into your graveyard, and draw a card. Now,
ooh, more breach fueling.
Oh, the breach line number 2, Ante. So Jeweled Bird obviously is basically what Jeweled Bird is and was insurance. It was an insurance policy. If you were playing for Ante back then and you did flip your mythical Black Lotus against somebody's forest or whatever.
4 Jeweled Birds. Good thing you already have them.
Because you basically say, I really don't want to lose this expensive card, so I'll just throw Jeweled Bird at them instead. And you could take that card and be like, all right, I really don't want to lose that card. I'm going to put my Jeweled Bird in there, and then I'll get that card. And you can get my Jeweled Bird. And the thing that was interesting from a mechanical standpoint was that they could do the same thing, because then you play another game and you ante again. And then they could
have your Jeweled Bird. Ooh.
Exactly. They'd have your Jeweled Bird. And that was the kind of the interesting part of that mechanic. The Jeweled Bird could flip back and forth throughout a day's games, because you're like, oh, I'm going to take my ante back and I'm going to give you this Jeweled Bird again. And so if you thought you were on the losing side of something, you could give them a Jeweled Bird instead. Yep. And that would technically flip back and forth, either through the matches through the day or throughout and then multiple times you saw that person. And that was a really cool thought. But in the CEDH application you flip
insurance policy.
Yeah, it's an insurance policy. If you're playing for Ante, every deck is going to run Jeweled Bird, because what if you accidentally flip Breach as your Ante card? And that's like the crux or the center point of your deck, and you don't have a secondary win con. You breach or nothing.
What if you're in a losing position and you have a tropical island in the ante zone, huh?
Yeah, and you really don't want to give up that multiple $100 card. And so you have the Jeweled Bird to get that card, and you can give that person your Jeweled Bird. Because this is played as an instant, by the way. This is an activated ability of an artifact.
Activated ability.
So you can be like, oh, we're about to win the games. I'll circle on the stack. Jeweled Bird. You can have my Jeweled Bird.
It is very interesting to me that, like, of all of the Ante cards, Jeweled Bird, I think, is the only one that wasn't in one of 3 that wasn't in ABUR, because Amulet of Quaz was in Ice Age, and the good old Timorin Fiends was in Homelands.
Yep.
But then Jeweled Bird was in Arabian Nights. And it got reprinted in Chronicles. Yeah.
That was pretty much it. And then the other one that was like
those were the 2 it was printed in.
Yep.
But it is interesting to me that, like, later on they were like, hey, what if we after the first set came out and they needed to pump out Arabian Nights, they're like, Ante's a little messed up. What if we patched Ante by printing Jeweled Bird? That'll make everything better. I promise, guys.
This is before errata existed. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So they were like, I'll just print a card errata. That's what they'll do.
To make Ante a little bit less miserable.
Exactly.
We'll print Jeweled Bird really fast.
Exactly. So, like, from that perspective, there's a lot of broken things that you can do with Jeweled Bird. Well, maybe I shouldn't say broken, but there's a lot of interesting things you can do, other than just the fact that it's your, in case of fire, break glass situation. That's what Jeweled Bird really was. But what you can do is you could do something with a card we're going to talk about here soon. Let's say you're doing a bunch of contract from below, right? Let's just say you're doing that through a breach line, and then somebody silences you after you've contracted from below 10 Ante cards, right? What you can do is you can Jeweled Bird and get those cards back. You're like, I went all in on this line. Somebody just got me at the exact right moment with a Flusterstorm or something, and now I can't do anything. But I have my Jeweled Bird to save my 12 Ante cards that are now in there versus everyone else's 1. And they just are going to untap and win. Well, I have my Jeweled Bird to save me just in case. So if anything, from a CDH perspective, that's one way to do it. However, there is one other thing that we might happen, and we'll talk about that here with the next card. So, but that's the second one, and that's Jeweled Bird. It's an interesting one. I like that one a lot.
Same. But before we talk about our third and final Ante card, and before we talk about how terrible Ante and CDH would be as an entire concept, we're going to take a quick ad break, and then we'll be right back.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Card Conduit. Do you have extra cards lying around that you don't use? Want to buy or trade for some extra cards but don't know how to maximize the value? Then you should try out Card Conduit. Card Conduit is the best service when it comes to selling your extra cards. Don't waste hours trying to find the best buy list price for your cards online. Simply send them to Card Conduit and let them take care of the rest. I've used Card Conduit multiple times already. I always use them to get the best value of my extra cards. I get fair prices for my cards, and they save me tons of time. They have 3 main services. Their standard service lets you send them unsorted cards of any value. They will sort, grade, and give you the best buy list price for your cards. Their curated service is similar. Send them your unsorted cards worth over $1 in value. They will charge half of the fee of the standard service and charge no fee per card. Their new sorted service is a great value as well. Choose cards in advance with their selection tool, send them sorted to Card Conduit, and they will grade and buy list them automatically. Save yourself the time of having to send to multiple sites and let Card Conduit do it instead. Their fee is only 2% with no fee per card. They give you the best price for your cards. They work with competitive buy listing partners, including ones not open to the public. Users get an average of 19% more for their collection than they would have from a major retail buy list, even with Card Conduit's fees. Card Conduit also optimizes buy listing for card condition as well. Since vendors have different penalties for wear and tear, Card Conduit will find the best buy list price against the specific condition of a card. So give Card Conduit a try today. If you sign up with my link in the show notes or the description, or use the promo code POWER, you'll also get 10% off their fees when you use their service. A big thanks to Card Conduit for sponsoring today's podcast.
And welcome back to the Playing with Power podcast, the podcast where we talk about what if Ante existed in CEDH. And we've got a third and final Ante card for CEDH applications that we're going to talk about here. This is actually the only one that is a combo piece. I didn't know if you realized that we'd have a little combo with our Ante cards today. This one's probably also like objectively the worst one on rate. It purely exists as a combo piece, I think. But this is Demonic Attorney, a sorcery, I think.
It is.
Colorless, black. Each player antes the top card of their library. Ooh, that's just kind of dangerous.
Ooh, it is. So this basically has zero function.
Yeah.
So this has zero function in any normal application. Be like, it's a wasted card slot. You're going down 2 cards. Basically, you're going down 1 card from your library and 1 card in your hand to cast this card. And all it does is ante another card. Now, you might argue something like, oh, I'm going to gotcha with a top deck tutor, but those didn't exist yet. Just FYI.
When was Vampiric printed?
Vampiric printed was printed in Visions.
Wow,
it was printed much later. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The original.
That was the Mirage block. Mirage Visions Witherlight.
Yeah. I can picture it now.
It was printed in Vision. So that was printed way after this one. Well, not way after, but after this one.
So this Tutor was Homelands and
so this was printed in ABUR. This is printed ABUR. And so this is when you look at this card, it's just like, okay, I guess. It's like there's only 9 cards that do it. So I'm not going to say that we should have a whole wide swath of functionality. But Demonic Attorney basically just says, hey, everyone antes again. That's just what's happening right now.
Yep,
so
everyone, all 4 of us.
Yep. So here's the thing about this particular one that is so bad, but so good. And how this, when we came up with the idea of what if Ante existed in CEDH, we talked about this card and how it would be the death of CEDH.
Yes. And
that's because there's a combo with this card. And that is the Dualcaster Mage Saw in Half Demonic Attorney combo. So if you're in anything that has those colors, so we're talking, let's say we're talking Mardu or something like that. But basically what you do is you'll cast Dualcaster Mage. I'm sorry, you'll cast Twin Flame. Hold on, am I doing this right?
You cast.
No. You cast
Demonic Attorney.
I did it wrong. You're right. You cast Demonic Attorney. You hold priority. You cast Saw in Half, which is an instant.
Yeah, targeting any other creature you have on the battlefield.
Any other creature. Okay. Yep. You hold priority again, and you cast Dualcaster Mage. Dualcaster Mage will enter the battlefield. It will copy Saw in Half. Saw in Half will target Dualcaster Mage. The Saw in Half copy will resolve. It'll create 2 Dualcaster Mages. Their ETBs will go on the stack. One will copy Saw in Half, targeting a Dualcaster again. The other will copy Demonic Attorney. Now, what this will do is this will present a loop of creating and casting infinite Saw in Halves and infinite Demonic Attorneys. Okay. So what this will do is everyone will ante their entire library. Then you can just pass the turn and everyone will lose the game from trying to draw a card. Now,
Better hope they don't have a jeweled bird out.
Yeah, better hope they don't have a jeweled bird, because that's why this would be the savior of that. But they would still lose the game.
Because they have to draw a card from the jeweled bird.
Because they have to draw a card. Here's the thing. This isn't like, oh, shucks, I lost the game. You lost the game, and you lost your entire library.
Whatever was left in your library has been anteed away.
It's because this isn't exiled. This is anteed. So you would own those cards. The person who ran that combo would own every one of those pieces of your deck. And that is why we started this silly little discussion to begin with, because you can basically own everyone's cards with that combo.
Yep. But be careful. If you have your Crom on the battlefield and somebody casts 2 spells after you've demonic attorneyed your entire library yourself,
you lost
you'll
your
lose
library.
the game, and then whoever's in the 4th seat will take everybody's decks because they'll be the final remaining player.
Yep. So you have to be very careful of that. But that was the thing. This was like how you can literally steal everyone's deck is what you can do. So basically whatever they have in their graveyard, in their hand, and on the battlefield is theirs. Yeah. But everything else is yours. You actually keep it because it's ante. Yep. So demonic attorney is really busted. We all know that ante doesn't work and we can't do ante in CEDH and blah, blah, blah. But we thought this one was the most interesting one. Funny thing is that this is not unlike just the Praetor's Grasp combo with Dualcaster and so on half. This is actually a real combo. You're just swapping Praetor's Grasp for demonic attorney. Yep. And people would just Praetor's Grasp everyone's libraries and pass the turn.
Yep.
But demonic attorney, you demonic attorney everyone's libraries and keep the cards when you're done. You sure you won't have any friends after that, but you have a lot of cards and that's nice. That's fun.
Yep, exactly.
But yeah, so demonic attorney, very interesting card.
Yeah, purely a combo piece, much like, LED or whatever. People only play because it's a combo piece. The kicker is that this card's just bad on its own. So and the incentives are so terrible that this is why we could never have ante and CEDH. We're on section 3 of the podcast. Holy moly, ante would be miserable in CEDH. Even the very floor of ante being in CEDH, if we were just playing CEDH for ante and nobody was messing around with cards like Contract from Below and Jeweled Bird and Demonic Attorney or Bronze Tablet and whatnot, like even if we weren't messing around with any of these cards at all, just the very floor of, all right, we're all playing CEDH for 1 card. And in a lot of CEDH decks, if we're talking about non-proxy decks here, the average value of a CEDH card is quite high. Like even a lot of our like cheap playables are still like $2 to $5. Like an offer you can't refuse will run you $3, and that's like one of the cheapest like staples in the format. Unfortunately, Soul Ring, Soul Ring or Command Tower are probably like the 2 cards you won't feel that bad about losing in your CEDH deck, but because they're so readily available. But every other card, you flip a Ragavan, you flip a Guardian, a Ranger
Lion's
Captain,
Eye Diamond,
flip
Ranger
a Lion's
Captain,
Eye Diamond, flip an Esper Sentinel. All these cards are like $10+, if not $100+, if not $400+. It stinks.
Yes, it does. And and people do this in poker all the time on weekends with their friends. They'll throw in $20 and play a card game and have some fun and maybe win some money. And that's where some people have the argument of, well, ante's not that bad. But you would feel a lot worse if I threw in 20 cents and you threw in $400 and I left with $400.20.
Yep.
That's where the problem lies.
Yep.
But then this game wasn't necessarily thought that there would be one card that was worth $400 and one card that was worth 20 cents. He thought they'd all be worth a quarter.
Yeah.
Richard Garfield's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So he thought that everything would be worth roughly the same amount. So he didn't think it was going to be that big a deal. He had no idea that this game was going to become what it became. Yep. And as such, and obviously, like I said, the gambling thing is really what kind of, and people just hated it. They just hated it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's we get why ante isn't a thing anymore. Everyone gets it. A fun experiment to talk about. This is something that's like funny to think about, like the idea of people Dualcaster saw in half demonic attorneying an entire library away is very funny to me. It's funny to talk about, funny to think about. thinking about that is what has got us to do this episode in the first place. Because it's just like, it's silly, it's dumb, but it would be miserable. And I get it. Like, even at the beginning of Ante, even at the beginning of the game, nobody really wanted to play for Ante, even if they were just playing with all 20-cent cards. Because, like, they're your cards, and losing your property over a game feels bad, even if it's just like a little cheap bit of property. I said it wouldn't feel that bad to lose a Soul Ring or a Command Tower, but I bet it would still kind of feel bad to lose a Soul Ring. You're like, dang it, one less card. Oh, I don't have a Soul Ring anymore.
You want to talk about salt?
Yeah, exactly.
We as players in Magic the Gathering get salty when nothing is on the line.
We get salty for no reason all the time.
When nothing is on the line, there are no stakes, and we're flipping tables at your local game store. Like, imagine losing cards, like actually saying, this is mine now. I get this. But also at the same time, we have to think about what the game was originally intended for and what Ante was originally intended for. Richard Garfield was not thinking that the decks would be like, we're so far removed from that original thing that it's hard to even fathom.
Yep.
Like what it was like.
Exactly.
Well, if I played against a green deck and I'm in my Rakdos deck, having a forest wouldn't make sense. Be like, no, they weren't thinking that the decks would be super optimized back then. Back when they were making this stuff, they didn't have things like card limits, like limits on cards per deck, the 4 of limits and stuff like that. Yep. That didn't exist
just
back
play all
then.
the cards you want. Yeah.
Yeah. The Channel Fireball combo came from just running a ton of Black Lotuses and Channel and Fireball and just winning turn 1. That's where Channel Fireball came from, because it ran like a bunch of them in every single, like as many as it could in your whatever card deck. And that's how the combo worked. None of this type of stuff existed, and we're so far removed from it. It's hard for us to even think or understand that. Yeah, I'm going to get this basic land or whatever, and you're going to get this basic land. But the decks were all hodgepodges to begin with anyway. There was no focus, there was no organization, or at least they thought from a design standpoint there wasn't going to be any focus or anything like that. That's why things like Black Lotus existed. Here's 3 mana of any one color. Yeah, now you can cast the thing you anteed.
Cast your big stuff. Yeah,
crazy. You cast your big stuff. You cast the thing you anteed and stuff like that, because the churn was thought to be a thing that was going to happen. But it didn't work out that way, did it? I'm glad where the game is now, and I'm glad Ante is not in it.
Big time same. Big happy that we don't have to deal with Ante anymore. It would be silly, I was trying to find it a little bit earlier in the podcast. I there's like this fun variant format, fun if you're into that, that I seem to recall people playing, and it was just like, I want to say it was called like Hammer or something like that, but I can't find anything about it, where it was like you anteed like the top card of your library. It's like, people would have these events at stores, and you would just like have a bunch of draft chaff that you would use that the store just like had around, and you would just have a deck of draft chaff. And then if you like lost a game or whatever, you had to like tear up your card that was anteed. And then like as the day went on or whatever, people would just have anyways.
I've never been a fan of destroying any card. I don't care how cheap it is.
That's fair.
I've never liked that. I get it though. Yeah. Like, the closest I can come to make people realize what Richard Garfield thought the game was going to be was there's a mini game where you open a pack, right? Mm-hmm. And you shuffle 3 of each basic land into that pack. You don't look at the pack. You open it upside down and you shuffle 3 of each basic land. And then you play against a person who did the same thing.
Yep.
Every card you draw is a surprise. Every single one's a surprise. And it's all just random stuff. Like the most random of cards. Like there wasn't drafting and stuff like that. That wasn't a thing back then. You just shuffled it in. That is the way that Richard Garfield kind of thought this game was going to be, at least on some level. It was this fun surprise, and this thing, it's all kind of random, and I'm going to put this, that, and the other in it, and I'm just going to find this because I thought this card is cool, and like not what it is today. I'm not saying that's bad what it is today. I'm just saying that's kind of how we thought it was, and that's how that Ante mechanic didn't.
Ante is Magic the Gathering as Richard Garfield
intended. Exactly. So then I think that's really, really cool. Anyway.
Well, would you play Magic for Ante, listener? Why or why not? I would love to know why.
Yeah, I'd really love to know why you would. Please let us know why you would.
I need to hear why not. We've been talking about why not for nearly like 40 minutes now. So,
or have you played Magic for Ante?
Yeah.
What was your experience? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What was the reason why?
Do you love it? Do you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What podcast episode should we discuss next? Be sure to like the video. I don't remember how the rest of the spiel goes. Anyways, make sure to give us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast aggregator. You'd be surprised how much it helps. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and more. All links are in the episode notes. That wraps it up for this episode of the podcast. Tune in next time when we talk more about our favorite format and our favorite game, Magic the Gathering. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and we will see you next time.